Pues fine in this? Okay. Oh, the bottle. We can leave. Okay.
Ok, creo que somos ready.
¿Sí, ¿lo han dicho? Sí.
Sí,
We can
dicho,
start.
sí.
So, welcome all. Before we start, I would like to stress that this event will be filmed and streamed. If you don't wish to be recorded, please let us know now. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, I would like to extend a warm welcome to this important event organized by Fertility Europe as part of the European Fertility Week, entitled Minds Matter, Empowering Infertility Patients with Psychological Support. My name is Estrella Durá Ferrandis. I am a member of the European Parliament from Spain, part of the S&D group. And I have the privilege to co-hosting this event with my colleague Eleni Stavrou. I will also today do my best to moderate today's conversation, which is being web streamed and followed across Europe. Welcome also to the online participants who can't be with us today. Today's topic is dear to my heart because I have dedicated part of my career to researching and developing European public policies in the field of infertility support. As professor at the Faculty of Psychology at the University of Valencia, I have co-authored several papers on the critical issue of infertility. In my studies, I have been able to verify that both the diagnosis of infertility and the process of undergoing assisted reproductive techniques are associated with negative emotional and cognitive responses in people who face this situation, as well as alterations in their social and intimate partner relationships. For this reason, I have argued that it is necessary to include in the field of infertility care not only the medical treatment of infertility, but also attention to the impact on the mental health and on the quality of life of people facing this process. Today's event is very timely, not only because today marks the second day of Fertility Europe's landmark yearly event, the European Fertility Week, but also because the theme of the week very much resonates with the attention that is currently given to mental health at the EU level. I'm thinking, for example, of the communication on a comprehensive approach to mental health published by the European Commission last June, as well as the work carried out in the Public Health Subcommittee on the own initiative report on mental health just approved this morning. And of course, the strong focus that my country, Spain, which currently holds the presidency of the Council of the EU, plays on mental health. For all these reasons, I'm very much looking forward to today's discussion. Allow me now to introduce you to our speakers and walk you through today's program as we have an impressive agenda ahead. We are joined today by Claudia Kordik, Chair of the Executive Committee of Fertility Europe, Dr. Christina Maggi, former Chair of the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology, Dr. Sofia Gameiro, psychologist at the Cardiff University, Aphrodite Alexopoulou, an infertility patient coming from Greece, and last but not least, Anita Fisman, Advocacy Manager at Fertility Europe. Each of you will make short presentation, please, short. We need to be to take into account the time. Short presentations, and we will also have video message from other colleagues from the Parliament. MEP Robert Bidron, Deirdre Clun, and Francis Fitzgerald. We have also in the room another colleague from MEP, Pietra, sorry if the pronunciation, who will intervene later when she wants. I'm very much looking forward to hearing you, today's contribution, and having a conversation with all of you. But before we hear from our speakers, I'm very happy to now give the floor to my distinguished colleague and co-host, Eleni Stavrou, representing Cyprus within the EPP, who will deliver her open remarks. Eleni, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Estrella, for your support in this endeavor and for co-organizing this event with me. I would also like to thank Fertility Europe for the critical advocacy work they do with the organization of the European Fertility Week every year. And also allow me to extend a warm welcome to all attendees, especially my colleague, Mr. Dimitris Papadakis from Cyprus, for coming to support me for my first ever event, and for Ms. Anna Michela Simakopoulou. I want to also thank all the attendees, both here and online. I personally hold the subject of infertility very close to my heart, as also a patient of infertility. As a member of the European Parliament, I feel strongly about informing the wider public about the emotional and psychological toll of infertility. Despite growing awareness surrounding the correlation between infertility and mental health, these two sensitive matters are still not getting the attention they deserve. Unfortunately, they are still shrouded in stigmas and taboos. Across the European Union, more than 25 million citizens struggle with infertility. Yet, most of us are unaware of its true weight. In my country, Cyprus, we face a significant challenge when it comes to infertility. Currently, we stand at the 9th lowest fertility rate in Europe, with just 1.29 children per woman. However, there is reason for optimism, as we have recently taken important steps ahead. Forward. In IVF treatments, an example of medically assisted reproduction, MIR, both financial and psychological support are crucial for infertility patients. Our health ministry has increased subsidies for first-time IVF treatments in women over 30, marking a significant advancement in our approach to infertility support. Additionally, our country offers grants for egg freezing, providing more options and hope for individual patients. Extremely important is the emphasis our health ministry has posed on the importance of addressing the issues surrounding infertility in modern society. As the health ministry rightly pointed out, that the availability, access and quality of medical services for infertility treatment remained a challenge, and called on our society to recognize the emotional, financial and psychological toll that infertility patients endure, as well, of course, as the physical toll. However, we still have a long way to go. as the use of evidence-based psychological interventions and the presence of mental health professionals with fertility treatment clinics are not yet the norm. This is essential because infertility is a deeply personal and often painful journey that can be emotionally and mentally challenging. It has a deep effect on the psychological well-being of those who experience it. The consequences of unaddressed, prolonged infertility and the lack of systemic provisions for equal access to fertility treatments cannot be underestimated either. They often lead to major mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and even suicidal thoughts and attempts. Unfortunately, at least 2 in 10 patients discontinue treatment before completing 3 cycles of in vitro fertilization, primarily due to the emotional toll it exacts. The consequences of unsuccessful attempts and conception may lead to individuals finding themselves excluded from job opportunities or even forced to withdraw from their professional lives, entrenching gender inequalities. It should also be taken into account that it is not only when IVF fails that this poses a psychological effect on infertility patients, but throughout the whole procedure. Infertility patients undergo hormonal stimulation, which causes fluctuation in the psychology of patients, as well as physical pain, which can result to psychological pain. Thus, psychological support is essential for them. I welcome Elena Kudura, my other colleague. Thank you for coming. As a former infertility patient myself, I know firsthand the toll it can have on the emotional well-being of the patient, their partner, and their families and friends. I have to say that for me it was a bleak time because of all these hormonal imbalances that I mentioned before. I felt elated at one moment and really down the next. And because I did many IVF treatments, around 12, you can understand that every time that something happened and one of the child or children died, I was a total wreck and people couldn't understand why. The support my family and the clinic and doctors gave was really, really low. Non-existent, and that resulted as well in a divorce, which made things even worse. So all this support that we are talking about mentally and physically, there is a lot of pain and bruising and everything. I think that it's very important also for the marriage to work and for us to be able to perform in our family duties and our work duties. Has proven that psychological support is alleviating distress, and related interventions not only enhance pregnancy rates during fertility treatments, but also equip patients in coping with the emotional challenges they face, as well as dealing with grief, because in my case, the children, 2 of the children died after birth, 1 before, so the grief was a lot and I didn't have the support we talked about. So as policymakers, I believe it is our collective responsibility to enable compassionate and supportive policies that recognize the importance of psychological support for those facing infertility. So I look forward to hearing your valuable contributions. Back to you, Estrella. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleni, for setting the stage for today's discussions. As I said earlier, I'm very happy to co-host this event with you today. Now, let's move to our first speaker to provide us with an introduction to Fertility Europe and this year's European Fertility Week. We have Claudia Kordik, Chair of the Executive Committee of Fertility Europe. Claudia, thanks, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, what can we say after such an introduction? It's very strong and powerful. But to start with, I'm Claudia Kordich, the chair of Fertility Europe, and I would like first to express how privileged we feel to be able to welcome you to this event in the European Parliament. Your presence today, both in person and also online, shows the importance of the topic of infertility, and I also understand it as your commitment to work further on the topic of infertility and fertility in Europe. Our special thanks goes to MEPs Stavrou and MEP Ferrandis for hosting this event today. I'm really looking forward to a meaningful and productive discussion. Today I will, in short only, present Fertility Europe, our organization, but in particular the European Fertility Week, and the reasons behind this year's focus to provide psychological support in the infertility context. Please, next slide. Fertility Europe first launched the European Fertility Week back in 2016, with each year focusing on a unique theme and special topic, even through the pandemic years. The main goals of the European Fertility Week are raise awareness, to break the silence on infertility, to encourage an open dialogue about fertility and infertility, to advocate for reproductive health, to promote equal access to fertility care, to influence policies to support those dealing with infertility, to offer education and information, to provide accurate fertility information, and to dispel myths and misconceptions about infertility, to reduce stigma, actually to challenge the stigma linked to infertility, fertility treatments and alternative family building options. And one last thing I did not mention. The goal of the European Fertility Week is to unite Europe for 1 week. This campaign is shared and disseminated in over 20 European countries by our European Patient Association. It's supported by various stakeholders throughout Europe. The word and message travels to national governments and ministries of health, and last but not least, here to the European Parliament. Next slide, please. This year we decided to dedicate the whole year of the European Fertility Week to the topic of psychosocial care. Infertility and mental health, we already heard, is a double taboo for the people facing it. It's not only doubling the burden, but often multiplying the burden of infertility. Facing infertility means going through pressure for parenthood from family, friends, and from society. Going through fertility treatments has an impact on your self-esteem and your relationships. But often accompanying mental health issues come without warning. Infertility can trigger and intensify anxiety, depression, and stress. There is still a large amount of shame and reluctance to seek help, and we really hope to change this. Next slide, please. While preparing this year's topic, it was then only when I learned that proof was already there 30 years ago. Psychological symptoms associated with infertility are similar to those associated with other serious medical conditions, such as cancer. And guess what? Not much happened then. Not much happened since then. Psychological support is still not offered, nor is it accessible for the vast majority of people facing infertility in Europe. Although we already heard the needs are rising, it's time for action now. Next slide, please. Fertility Europe is the pan-European organization representing patient associations from Europe, and these patient associations are dedicated to fertility and infertility. Fertility Europe was established in 2009 and now has 31 members from 28 European countries. Fertility Europe stands for equal, fair and safe access to treatment and public education on fertility. Fertility Europe strives for a society where every person has access to high-quality, holistic fertility care and alternative parenting options. We are the patient's voice for over 25 million people in Europe. Next slide, please. Our European Fertility Week started yesterday, and it will last until the 12th of November. Minds matter. Please join us in our campaign. Join us in raising awareness and showing the importance of psychological support in reproductive health policies. How can you help us? Share our materials, spread the word. Together, I really believe so, we can make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia, for that insightful introduction to Fertility Europe. It's wonderful to see the commitment and dedication that your organization brings to such vital issues. Thanks I'm now passing the floor to Christina Magli, former chair of the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology.
Yes, hello. My name is Christina Magli. I am an embryologist, and I'm here on behalf of the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology. This is a society that was founded almost 40 years ago and gathers now more than 10,000 members. Okay, here are the slides going on. And as you can read from the mission, and as you can easily imagine, our focus is understanding and treating infertility. Not also that, but also trying to prevent fertility, because as an association, we are not curing fertility, we are just helping our patient to overcome this issue. But we are really involved in this, and we are really dedicated our effort in trying to understand what is behind, the reason behind the infertile conditions, and also to communicate to lay people, to common people, how to avoid to become patients. So it seems strange, but nevertheless, this is what we are trying to do. As you can see in the next slide, our society has very many activities. So as you can imagine, training and giving information on the most recent developments is our main core, but we are also very deep involved in guidelines. So in a way to give the best information about the good clinical practice. And we have a registry. Registry is extremely important, collecting the data from infertile patients that performing treatment, because only with a registry, data from a registry, you can really say what is the situation, which treatment is good, which are the results that we are having. So with this information, this is the one that you can transmit to patients for them to have a real information of what can be their expectation. In the next slide, this is the core of our society. That is what we call the special interest groups. So our members are divided among these 14 special interest groups. I belong to embryology because I am an embryologist, so you see many technical special interest groups like embryology, genetics, endocrinology, but you also see the one that is circled in red, that is psychology and counseling, meaning that our society gives a great relevance to this aspect, and Sophia knows very well because she was an active part of one of these groups. In the next slide, this is why we did so, because we learn very clearly, having to deal with our patients every day, how tough is having to deal with infertility. That is a disease. WHO told us so many years ago, and as such, it generates disability. So it's important that we provide treatment to all our patients. Next slide. These numbers, we already heard these figures, but we wanted to put them all together because they have to remain in our mind. 1 out of 6 couples have experienced infertility problems throughout their lives at least once. We have the 25 million European citizens that are affected by infertility. 25 million is a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's 1/3 of the whole population of my country. I mean, it's a lot. And what we can do for these patients is to provide this is what happened so far. 10 million babies born from our infertility treatments. Next, what we learn from our patient, it was explained very well by Claudia and Eleni, I think much better than what I can do, but it's a lot of, it has a big impact in the relationship with the whole member of the society, including the ones that are closer to the person. But this is not only the fertility itself condition, but as you can see in the next slide, also the MAR, the medical assisted reproduction techniques, has a tough implication. I think that, Eleni, you explained this so well, so I don't need to go over this again for all the difficulty, because infertility is touching something that is very inside of us. So, of course, the expectations and especially the burden of the negative results when you cannot do an embryo transfer, when the embryo transfer results in no pregnancy and you tried several cycles. So, and this is the importance of also having the data from the registry to tell what is the real expectation that you may have, but of the psychological care that these patients need. These terrible results or these difficult results have to be supported by somebody that knows how to do it. Next again. And so this is why we are so convinced, and as Escher is so convinced that psychosocial care is so important. Actually, we developed a guideline, it's publicly available in our website. There is a brochure for patients. And we recently made a series of webinars in which there are indications for the professionals how to deal with patients, taking into consideration these special aspects, are advice for clinics. So I think that this is a very important point for us, and we are extremely supportive of this initiative. In the next slide, this is what I was referring to a minute ago. We are not dealing with the problem of infertility, but we are also working with groups that are supporting them, that are trying to avoid, especially the young generation, to become in the future infertile patients. Because in some cases there are physical implications, but in other cases infertility is due to a not correct information of the duration of infertility or of the use of, well, drugs and any other attitudes in life that may affect infertility. So we are working with these two groups, at which Fertility Europe is also part. And my last slide goes to Fertility Europe. This is, we used to say our patient association, Escher Patient Association. It's not true, it's not correct. It's not ours, but we are working with them. We are supporting them. And in the collaboration is in two ways, because we are supporting them financially, because they need that, of course. And we are providing them with data. We are providing them with surveys, helping surveys, and we are including them in our guidelines for all the aspects that regards patients, because we are definitely, as I said, convinced that patients are the core of our own world, and we want that patient feel support from a treatment. I don't want to hear anymore what you said about that you were left alone. This has not to happen. This is poor practice, bad practice. I mean, this is important to support our patients, not only technically speaking, but also from the psychological point of view. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Maggi, for sharing your valuable insight with us. We truly appreciate your contribution. Now, we will play 3 video statements from fellows, members of the European Parliament. I think it's ready. Robert Biedron, who is chair of the Committee of Women's Rights and Gender Equality. Francis Fitzgerald, who has been a long-standing supporter of Fertility Europe, but he couldn't stay here today. And Deirdre Clune from Ireland.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm so delighted to be joining you here today. My apologies that I cannot be with you in person, but I would like to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Fertility Week. Thank you very much to my colleague and friend, Eleni Stavrou, MEP, for hosting today's event, and to the wonderful team at Fertility Europe for continuing to bring this most crucial of issues to the fore. We know that fertility issues are widespread in Europe. We know from hushed conversations and silent glances, and sometimes unexplained tears, the devastation that this phenomenon is wreaking on families, individuals, and communities across Europe. Yet we rarely hear it spoken about so openly to take in exactly how widespread fertility issues are. For example, in Ireland, about 1 in 6 couples will experience some sort of fertility issues, a statistic which resembles the overall EU rate. This is not a minor problem. While medicine and technology have made great leaps, we are not at a point at all where fertility is a straightforward path. There are also new obstacles which did not exist before. Unfortunately, biology does not evolve at the same rate as society. Fertility has historically been treated as a private matter, where women suffered from miscarriage in silence or men dealt with the shame of being infertile on their own. The taboo about these physical problems were further enhanced by the mental health issues which accompany them. I think both women and men have felt that their experiences could not be openly shared for fear of being judged by others. But as of today, I'm really happy to see how the conversation on fertility is definitely becoming more widespread and also more open in both formal and informal circles. It makes sense as it intersects with many other contemporary topics that are common in current political discussion. I do, however, think that there is still stigma surrounding the topic, especially on the way it affects the mental health of the people who go through these struggles. Problems with fertility can have a real mental toll on the people affected by them. This can come in all shapes and forms, such as the anxiety of an unplanned pregnancy for a young girl, a period of depression after miscarriage, or the distancing of a couple who has found out that one of them is infertile. As fertility rates go down, I do worry that young people will feel isolated. People from my generation had to go through many of the fertility mishaps on our own, but we were surrounded by friends and siblings who also planned on having children. It's sometimes unclear to me whether that was more or less helpful, but nowadays priorities seem to have shifted, partly due to the difficult economic times we are living in. Having children is not a general want necessarily, a guaranteed life marker. However, for those who do, having a difficult time conceiving can be crueler in this world of instant results. So, critically, we must all be very cognizant of this in our daily interactions with people and be willing to have what may seem at first glance like uncomfortable conversations. Being open, as always, can sometimes be the greatest relief of all, and sharing with someone who wants to support you is crucial. Sensitivity to the circumstances of others is key. Coupled with the psychological trauma, the stress of the expense of assisted technology, often adds to this burden. Costs can really be astronomical depending on where you live in Europe, and consequently this affects the mental health of couples and individuals. The inability to pay ends up generating guilt, shame and internal conflicts as it becomes a greater sacrifice to have children. I believe we can all do more to support our children, friends, brothers, sisters and cousins who find themselves in this situation. I once again congratulate Fertility Europe on their work in this area. It is superb. And I hope we can continue to work together on these really important contemporary issues. Thank you.
I'm proud to support, on behalf of the European Parliament's Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, Fertility Europe's Minds Matter Empowering Fertility Patients with Psychological campaign. Fertility and some fertility affect 1 in 6 people in Europe and are too often hidden scourges in our societies. Whatever the causes of infertility, whatever the choices made and remade by the people concerned, it is something that nobody should go through alone. The FAM Committee advocates for the right to plan for a family, bodily autonomy, dignity and practical empowerment, while keeping in mind the reality of LGBTI+ persons in same-sex couples or single women interested in fertility options who might be unable to prove infertility and therefore be denied access to the pivotal treatments. The issues vary throughout the 27 members of the EU, but one thing in common is that people need access to fertility treatments regardless of their socioeconomic or marital status, gender identity or sexual orientation, and a key part of the support must include psychological support. And this support needs to be available and advertised from the early stages, as many are too embarrassed to or ashamed to seek medical help, especially if they face other hurdles. This is why it is of utmost importance that the EU takes a holistic, rights-based, inclusive and non-discriminatory approach to fertility. Fertility needs to be discussed openly without shame or prejudice, from age-appropriate school sexual education to community outreach to social media influencers. You don't have to bear the burden alone.
Hello, and thank you for being with us today as we mark European Fertility Week. It's a time when we can focus on the patient and their journey with fertility and the ups and the downs and the often difficult times that they will have on that journey. It's important as well that this week we focus on the psychological impact of fertility and that it can have on patients, their relationships, their professional life, their relationships with their friends. It can often be difficult, filled with much hope and sometimes a lot of disappointment. And the European Commission in June launched its European Mental Health Roadmap, focusing on prevention and support. And I think that's what we can do as well with fertility. Focus on prevention, recognising the needs of the patient through the journey, before, during and indeed after. So it's important as well that the stigma around fertility would be overcome, and that's something we can focus on this week. It often brings enormous burden for patients, and to know that that can be shared, and psychological support will be very important with that also. So really want to wish you well with your discussions, and I hope that together we can raise awareness around fertility, recognise that fertility treatment, which should be for all, it's not a privilege, should be available for all, but that there will be many difficult times along that journey, and that the patient and the individual will need our support from a psychological point of view.
Well, I think that these messages are really, really inspiring for all of us, and I am proud to see prominent MEPs' commitment to advancing support to fertility patients. Now I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sofia Gameiro, psychologist from Cardiff University, who will share her latest results on psychological support for infertility patients. The floor is yours, and thank you.
Thank you so much, and also thanks for Fertility Europe to invitation to speak here today. It's a pleasure to share some of my knowledge and explain why psychosocial care is crucial to the successful management of infertility. And I was going to do this by first describing the impact of infertility, but I don't really think I need to do that anymore because it's been covered. So I'm going to focus on also explaining the benefits of psychosocial support and then argue kind of for why regulation is needed and what it should focus on. Thank you. So in relation to the impact of infertility, there's only 3 points that I would like to highlight. One is that its impact is disproportional and it impacts women more than men to a large degree because all kind of medical procedures focus on women. Second, that fertility treatment is so demanding and has such a psychological burden on patients that every 2 from 10 patients who start IVF are actually not able to do treatment and stop, even though they have good prognosis and are not, of course, yet pregnant. And the third is that treatments actually have a moderate success rates, and that means that from 10 couples or 10 patients who start treatment, around 3 to 4 will not have children with treatment. And we know that this triggers quite an intense grief that on average lasts 2 years to kind of overcome. Now, psychosocial care, the best available evidence shows that psychosocial care is associated with higher treatment success rates. And this is because it imparts patients with knowledge and skills that help them to cope with the challenges of treatment and therefore help them to do as many cycles as they can to maximize their chances. Another important aspect of psychosocial care is that it helps patients to navigate all what can be very complex decisions about how to have children and the implications of those decisions. So it supports them in exploring new forms of starting and building families and being parents. For these reasons, it is associated with reduced stress during treatment, with better treatment experiences, higher satisfaction with care, more knowledge and fewer concerns about the treatment procedures, better well-being and optimism. And it's also been shown that psychosocial care can also ease adjustment when treatment does not work. So overall, it ameliorates the deterioration of mental health and its kind of spillover impact through other areas of life for a period that can be extremely long. And it supports people in making decisions and exploring routes to have children, be it medical or non-medical. Now, despite the strong evidence in support of psychosocial care, we know that it is not routinely nor consistently provided across European countries. So, for instance, in the results that Anita will show on the Fertility Europe survey indicate that 8 in every 10 patients report that they feel the need to psychosocial care during treatment, but only 2 in 10 are offered, and only around 1 in 10 have the costs of that support covered or funded. We also know from research that mental health professionals are not regularly employed nor integrated at fertility clinics. We know that Christina mentioned the ESHRE psychosocial care guidelines, which I had the pleasure to share, and we've done some research after to see its uptake, and we know that only around 30% of professionals actually follow the guidelines across Europe. And we also know that from all people who start treatment, around 10 to 20% are at risk of experiencing significant distress, but these patients are not identified nor offered support to try to prevent that distress so early in the process. So what we are arguing here today is for the need for regulation. Yes, here. For the need for regulation to stimulate and try to promote the uptake of psychosocial care across Europe. And we would like to kind of highlight what we consider to be basic quality standards for psychosocial care. The first one is that it should be easily, publicly funded and timely accessible for everyone affected by infertility. As you have seen, infertility journeys can be extremely long. The needs vary as people go through this journey. And so if we want to support people, we have to provide them support when they need and tailored to the challenges that they're facing then. We also know that restrictions in access to treatment and disparities and also the moderate success rates of treatment means that a large proportion of people will not achieve children through that pathway, and therefore it's our duty of care to support that large cohort of people, not only emotionally, but also in thinking about potentially other routes to parenthood or even considering a childless style of life and if they can adapt to that. Finally, it's also important to note that infertility does not affect only those diagnosed with infertility, but other people around, as the partners, as donors, as the children conceived with treatment, and even professionals working at clinics. And so support should be available and can be helpful also for these different stakeholders. Second, psychosocial care should be integrated in infertility management. We don't think that psychologists and other mental health professionals should be siloed into their own kind of office and be sent patients who are hard to manage, but they should be integrated into a multidisciplinary team that together think about how they can embed psychosocial practices in the way that they provide medical treatment at clinics. Only in this way we are able to detect those patients who very early experience distress, even before they do experience. Only in this way can we immediately activate support in crisis situations, such as the one that the, MEP Eleni talked about when there is pregnancy losses and recurrent miscarriage, etc. And also only in this way we can ensure adequate follow-up for those who go through the process without achieving the so desired children. Third, we think that psychosocial care has to be evidence-based if we want to maximize its efficacy. And there's three elements to this. First, mental health professionals need to be trained in frameworks that teach how to use evidence when we're making decisions about care. Second, public-funded interventions public funding needs to prioritize interventions that have real and good quality, showing that they are indeed beneficial for patients. And third, patients need to be involved and have a say on how psychosocial care is organized and interventions are developed so that these are patient-friendly and really address their needs. And lastly, psychosocial care needs to be part of a continuous professional development portfolio. So if we want psychosocial care to be a collective endeavor from everyone at clinics who have direct contact with patients, then everyone has to receive some training on basic psychosocial care competencies. So for instance, on communication skills, on psychosocial education, on decision-making, sharing decision-making, cultural sensitive care, trauma-informed care, etc. Another very important aspect is that primary care and mental health professionals outside fertility care also need to be trained to develop awareness of the impact of infertility on mental health and also on the specificities of supporting people with fertility problems. So in conclusion, our kind of ask here is to help us promote healthier adjustment to infertility, better support for family building, better experiences of fertility treatment, and higher treatment success rates. We think that investing now in regulating psychosocial care in infertility healthcare across Europe can prevent economic and societal costs, and also support demographic growth in an aging Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sofia, for your enlightening presentation. It's evident that psychological support is a crucial component of fertility care. Now I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker, who will provide a personal testimonial on the experience of infertility. Aphrodite, thanks for coming with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for hosting this event. And personally, thank you for giving me the stage to share with you my personal story. As all the other speakers already said, infertility is often addressed by striking numbers and statistics hitting the headlines. 25 million people in the EU are facing infertility. 1 in 6 couples, up to 10% of newborn children, are with us thanks to advances in medicine. But behind all these numbers and statistics, you will find us, the patients. My name is Aphrodite Alexopoulou. I'm from Greece. I'm the treasurer of Fertility Europe, but first of all, I'm a patient. My infertility journey started at the age of 21, when I was finally diagnosed with endometriosis, after 3 years of trying to conceive a baby. I had a surgery, 2 fallopian tubes, and almost all of my left ovary removed. After that, IVF was the only solution. We immediately started trying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One failure followed another. In these 3 years, our life was a race full of injections, medicine, expenditures, crying, disappointment, and anger. During this trip, I discovered the new feelings. Before infertility, I had never felt jealous, resentful, embarrassed, or self-conscious. I was raised to believe that if you work hard and you don't give up, that you can achieve anything. I was also a very confident and strong woman, until infertility rocked me to my core and impacted every aspect of my life. Now, I'm jealous and resent friends and acquaintances that have a baby pump. I'm embarrassed that my body can do what it was designed to do. I have started not to trust my body. The inability to achieve something 90% of other women can do easily has caused feelings of hatred towards my body for being a failure, and I've struggled with biological feelings that my body can't do the one thing that it was made to do. Then I became a very anxious and depressed person. Research has shown that women dealing with infertility have depression and anxiety levels similar to those with cancer, HIV, and heart disease. I have become intimately familiar with infertility's psychological toll. I have deep-rooted trauma from all these medical procedures and the failed treatment protocols. After 5 failed attempts, you learn how to live and process through grief. Infertility is like dealing with the 5 stages of grief every single month. You deny, get angry, cry, bargain, and then accept. Thanks to my psychologist, I have learned that grief is like a kaleidoscope and not linear. You turn it back and forth and jump around to different stages, and each stage is a different picture for each person. Then planning my life around if I'm going to be pregnant was very exhausted. Friends and family used to say, I see how hard you are trying, and I know how much this hurt, but when it doesn't work. But trust me, you will get pregnant, keep trying. But no, nobody can feel you. Nobody can understand you, nobody but beside an infertile person. I was searching the internet for help, for people like me, and there I have found the Greek Fertility Support Association, Kiveli. There I realized that I wasn't alone. There I have found people that actually heard me without judging me, without giving me advices what to do or not to do. People who were hurting like I was, who were living the same situation as me, and there I found remediation and felt free without being oppressed by what I have to do. This journey can be so isolating. It feels like you're the only one who is struggling, but you are not alone in this. You must reach out to others who have been through the same thing and gain strength from their stories of survival, courage, and success. Because we spend so much of our time and energy trying to explain to people why it hurts so much, why pregnancy announcements are a huge trigger, why we cannot go to that baby shower. We struggle to get the support we need, and people never seem to say the right thing. It's not our fault and it's not their fault, because sometimes we don't understand it ourselves. Infertility is not black or white, it's varying shades of grey. It's like nothing we have ever experienced before, grief upon trauma, upon loss, upon disappointment. The truth is, we'll never be able to explain it, and that's okay. It's not our job to try to make someone understand. To truly know infertility, unfortunately, you must live it. During this journey, you can easily lose yourself, your mental health, your relationship, your friends, your job, your money savings. That's why psychological support and infertility counseling during infertility treatments is so important and must be essential parts of any infertility service. I know that infertility is a part of my life story, and it always will be a part of who I am, and I will always carry it with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you really much for sharing your powerful testimony. I was truly moved for your experience. And now we will move to the presentation of Fertility Europe, survey results and recommendations. To guide us through this essential segment, I'm giving the floor to Anita Fisman, Fertility Europe Advocacy Manager. Anita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think we're going to start from a video.
Infertility is an emotional challenge affecting 1 out of 6 people of reproductive age across Europe. The mental toll starts early, even before people consider getting treatment. This burden is worsened by cultural taboos and societal pressure, consuming not only people's personal and professional relationships, but the relationship with themselves, their body, and their minds. According to a recent survey launched by Fertility Europe, 71% of individuals who had undergone fertility treatment in the last 2 years were never offered psychological support. The journey can be long and lonely, not knowing who to turn to. Barriers to accessing psychological support range from lack of national policies to financial burden and the stigma surrounding treatment, making support inaccessible for many. But together, we can make a difference. For this year's European Fertility Week, we aim to spotlight the need for psychological support for individuals before, during, and after fertility treatments throughout their infertility journey. Join us in advocating for equitable and accessible care for all. With your support, we can inspire the change we wish to see in the world.
My name is Anita Fincham, and I'm very grateful to be able to present it. I have to say it's not easy to follow up from what was said already. We had so much expert knowledge and so many powerful testimonials. I am deeply moved, actually, and I have to say we were... Can I have a slide, please? what I will share with you today is that the results of the patient survey on psychological support, patients from whole Europe that received treatment in the last couple of years. As you can see, the 35 countries responded, not all of them equally. There are countries where definitely you can see more interest in psychological support and some which were not. But we'll talk about the results. I think we missed one slide, so I'll just say there was one slide with. I wanted to say that we've been talking about our members were bringing up the subject of psychological support for years and years, and we touched it seriously a couple of years ago when we launched the first atlas of together with European Parliamentary Forum for Sexual and Reproductive Rights. We launched the European Atlas on fertility treatment policies in Europe. And we added to ESHRE data, which were the base for the atlas, we added some patient criteria. One of them was the psychological support as integrated part of treatment. No country has that in Europe. And then
we should promote it.
Yes, absolutely. And then this year, earlier this year in June, we have launched the white paper, which described the situation with infertility in Europe and our ideas how it should be, how it should evolve, what we should aim for. And one of the points in this, our 12 points, sort of most important things that should be achieved, was psychological support as integral part of fertility treatment. And so we decided that this psychological support, being the main theme of this year, should also come to European Fertility Week and the Parliament. And I have to say, I was the first one to have the doubts, is the subject political enough? Is the subject suitable for that sort of event? And I'm so pleased to say that you proved us wrong, because we are really overwhelmed with support of the organizations that are here and that gave us support, of MEPs, and to have you both as experts also, not politicians only, sorry for only, as politicians and experts, is truly important for us. So yes, I was embarrassed, afraid to be judged. That's a bit of the survey. And this is patient quotes. The stress, the day-to-day life. We know that this is one in some countries say 1 in 5 couples. Some general data shows 1 in 6 couples are affected by infertility. We all know them. We may not know that we know them, because they don't always talk about it, because, like we say, it's a stigma. It's a double stigma. It's stigmas. It's infertility, which considered to be very personal, but also there is this mental toll, and that's also very personal, because it's not easy to admit that you, like Aphrodite just said, that you feel jealous that your friend is pregnant. It's just impossible to say, or that you don't want to see the baby of your sister. And that is what is a common feeling among the people who are affected. Thank you. So 71% of patients were never offered psychological support in their clinics in the last couple of years. And basically 80% of them say they need it. And definitely, very close to 80% need it when they're going through some difficult part of the treatment. That could be problem with implantation. That could be problem when the stimulation is not going right, when there's disappointment of bad results, and there are very difficult things like miscarriages. So that remains not addressed. So the patients stay with this themselves. So one of the patients say, we chase the dream. Yes, we chase the dream and we put everything aside and roll on, passing border after border, but we only found out later. It's a very lonely emotion. So we're talking about people who are in their most productive age and they cannot get on with their lives because they put everything on hold. They don't look for promotion at work. They don't deal with their social life. They don't deal with family life because everything is just, but I'm waiting. I'm about to get pregnant. Surely I'll get pregnant. That will work at some stage, yeah? So let's just wait. And that can take 2 years, 5 years. We know patients, many patients will take 10 years, and it takes those lives out of their lives. So they truly need support. And yes, they feel supported by their partners. They also look for peer support, which is often found with patient associations. This is what we provide. And this is, if you look at all of our members, all of them started from some support group. It was linking the patients, yeah? There's just two patients getting together and just finding out actually, oh, so you feel the same like I do. So I'm not, you know, I'm not this strange person feeling bad because I feel like I feel. There is more of you feeling like that. So we all start from there. But yes, look, they were all looking, but they were not looking because the support was not easily available. This is what our patients say in the survey. So out of 2,600 people who reported in the last few weeks, they said they didn't look for support because it was not easily available. And we have ESHRE guidelines. We have, if you look at our website, on our recommendations, there is a list prepared by Sophia, long, longer than a page, of evidence how much it is needed. So this year is special because also European Commission published this comprehensive approach to mental health communication, and states that actually we should look at mental health, and our member states also should adopt an approach that promotes mental health. And infertility is a great risk to mental health. So here comes our recommendations, and Sophia explained them quite thoroughly, so I will not go on too much. But just basically, like we say, all the patients, or even not patients, you should have access to easy found and publicly funded and timely access to psychological care, because you don't have to, you may just decide to adjust to infertility. You may feel that you don't want to even go into treatment, but it doesn't mean that you're not affected by infertility. So it needs to be not just in the fertility clinics. Thank you. And it needs to be integrated in the care system. It needs to be integrated in the fertility care, but also in general patient care. So when we talk in the clinic, it just like Sophia said, it cannot be just afterthought, but there is so much guidelines and evidence that say that many of the solutions of including it into patient care can be just done without any cost. It's just the question of knowing how to do it and trying harder. And again, the next one, please. And evidence-based, we know there is a lot of evidence because we know it. Look at our website, it's all gathered there, I'll say again. So let's invest in this evidence-based practice. And yes, and let's help the professionals to be able to deal with it, because it's not easy for them either. And we are not brought up to know how to deal with people's grief, how to deal with people's pain. We almost counter-educated to say the wrong things, trying to cut it short, not learning to just listen and be with the people who are suffering. So that, I guess, is also going well with the new approach of European Commission. So yes, so next one, please. So this is really all from us. Just all to we need to empower patients. We need to give them agency, and the psychological support is the tool of dealing with the process, dealing with the challenge of sometimes many years of infertility. So I would like to thank again to MEP Stavrou and MEP Ferrandis for the expert hosting, and also to MEP Matic for being with us today, faithfully supporting every one of our initiatives, and for those who are not with us but supporting MEP Fitzgerald, MEP Biedroń, MEP Klun, to Dr. Sofia Gabeiro for helping us prepare these recommendations. Obviously to Christina Magli, who is enthusiastically always behind our initiatives, and whole ESHRE. And yes, to our colleagues, members, Monica, who is missing here and who did a lot of work on those on preparing this event, and everybody else for contributing, commenting, and disseminating the materials. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita, for sharing the result of your survey and, of course, the recommendation. I'm sure that these insights will undoubtedly contribute to our understanding of the challenges faced by persons with infertility. Now, before we go to Q&A, we have a video message from Mental Health Europe.
Dear MEPs Stavrou and Durá Ferrandis, dear colleagues at Fertility Europe, dear participants, though I cannot be there live, I am grateful that technology allows me to send you this brief message. The topic that is being discussed today highlights how good mental health is part of every healthy life and how social determinants can impact the mental well-being of people. We know that good mental health needs to be supported for all, and we often hear that mental health does not discriminate. I am not so sure about this because we know that people who are living in specific vulnerable situations are more at risk of developing mental health problems and need tailored support for prevention and, in case, for recovery. Among these people are those affected by infertility and unintended childlessness. Uncertainty about the success of treatment and lack of proper support during the journey is a problem. Often people wait for many years for diagnosis and treatment, and even when treatment starts, there is uncertainty about the success of it. Treatment per se can be a burden in terms of medication and of time constraints, for instance. Low success rates also mean the need to repeat the treatment over and over again. It means facing defeat over and over again. It means a gradual loss of hope to live life as one would have wished to live it. Mental distress extends also after treatment, if this is unsuccessful, to adjust to life without children. It is clear then that access to mental health care is paramount. We also know that access to psychological care is already quite low in Europe for the general population, with waiting times that are too long and costs that are too high for many people. Funding should therefore go to improve access to mental health care for all and also for care targeted to specific populations. At the same time, we need to increase understanding that mental health support does not translate necessarily for everyone in psychotherapy. There are many ways in which we can create the right conditions in health systems to support mental health. Peer support is definitely one of them. This is being taken up in some member states, but its potential is still vastly underused and not understood in Europe. Mental health literacy of healthcare professionals can also be key, not only to support patients, but also to make the work of our workforce more manageable and even more rewarding. We need to create the right context so that even those that are going through difficult medical procedures can do so in the best possible mental health conditions. We often talk about health systems, but I think we need to look further into well-being or community systems. While health and mental health care is important, support should and can go beyond it. To properly accompany individuals in their journey, we should consider each person in its entirety, including their relationships and their role in society. This means not only focusing on the medical aspects, but also on the social aspects and factors such as isolation, stigma, or loneliness that very much affect people's mental health. Without support and literacy, distress can hinder close relationships and inclusion in social activity. Without reasonable accommodation, there can be decreasing professional development and capacity, which would also widen gender inequalities in employment. Without public funding, the negative impact on employment will only add to financial challenges. Relationships and engagement in social activities, employment, and financial security are well-known determinants of mental health. Taking a psychosocial approach to mental health is therefore the way forward. This is what Mental Health Europe is persistently advocating for. It means working simultaneously on different factors so that people can be supported holistically and systems can become sustainable, accessible, of good quality, and human rights based. Thank you for listening to me, and I am looking forward to seeing the psychosocial approach furthering also the improvements of lives of those affected by infertility and unintended childlessness.
Well, I think we are arriving to the end and we have not a lot of time. I'm not sure if Christina is... I take the opportunity to thank Christina from my team for the organizing. We need to... and also, of course, your
Yes,
MP.
my team as well.
Okay.
Yes.
We need to finish right at 30 because the room is... Okay, so we can
have time for some questions.
For
yes.
some questions. So now we can use some, no more than 10 minutes, I think, but for Q&A. But first I would like to give the floor to my colleague Pedra Matic, who has with us today to intervene first, and then feel free to ask questions to our experts.
Thank you. Very briefly. Hi everyone. I'm very proud to be with you today, and I want to I would like to thank my colleagues Estrella and Eleni for organizing this very interesting and important event, and of course, thanks to all the experts for their contribution to the European Fertility Week. As a member of a FEM committee, I can say that I will always support you and that you can always count on me without any doubt. Thank you very much.
First of all, a mother, happily, through IVF. I'm also with our stork from Poland, that is, I think, well known to Fertility Europe. I wanted to ask the other aspect. We are talking about the ways that we can get to the psychological support. However, are there any guidelines, ways, or any, let's say, evidence proofs, analysis on how to actually go with your partner? Because I meet with hundreds, I talk with hundreds of women that are stating that I also want to join the psychological support. However, first of all, the partner is saying, you go first, let's fix it, and then I will join, you know? And I think that this is also an issue that is a hugely, let's say, maybe not that well diagnosed. However, there is almost 90% of women that are going through, let's say, the psychological support that cannot actually convince the partner. And the partner absolutely can help, because the partner is also the person that is in the relationship. as well as the family. Of course, with the family, you don't have to go to the psychologist. However, what is the way for those who really need that? I think so.
Thanks for the question. It doesn't have an easy answer. First, we should be aware that most of the research that it's done with women, and that it's in part because men are not so willing to get involved. And we actually did a whole PhD on where are all the men. And in a way, they're just not so willing to get involved in reproductive research as women. But we know that men are also very affected by infertility. We know that they feel excluded from the whole treatment process in itself, where most of the medical aspects kind of fall upon women. So my answer would be from the clinics to try to promote the partner's involvement through the more medical aspects, and to kind of, by integrating psychosocial care, to normalize the experience of meeting a mental health professional. And the lack of normalization of that experience results in stigma and results in a way on self-exclusion. The fact that it's not easy many times to know how to, access that support, and that you have to talk with a new person also makes that harder. So the kind of easy answer would be, let's first try to make the men more welcomed and more embedded in the whole treatment process, and then let's normalize the experience of, as part of that treatment process, to also have contact with mental health professionals.
I just add one word to it. So to our survey, of the 2,600 people, 20 men filled the survey. But also, I want to notice one thing. The language even, we talk about the patient and the partner, meaning the woman and the partner. I would like to think they're both patients. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. If there is a man, if there is a couple, if there is a man, then they're both patients. Yeah.
Maybe also this stems that their reluctance to participate, from my experience as well, is that there is a stigma to the man's masculinity. Mm-hmm. And in many conservative societies, even if it's not the woman's fault, okay, or if it's not the fault, but issue that has to do with fertility, she assumes responsibility so that the eyes are not on the man. And that is common in our culture as well, where masculinity is very something that to be proud about, and that things don't happen to the man, but for the woman it's okay, and oh, poor woman. So that's why they are reluctant, and they don't feel they don't want to be included as much. They volunteer, but to a minimum, not really involved. And I think that maybe it should be compulsory from the government as well, that in order to get funding for IVF treatments, if psychological assistance is offered, then the couple has to do it together. Both of
I would add that it's really a matter of communication and education. I think that we have to make some noise in this direction. I mean, to educate. We do not have to be ashamed if we are infertile patients. Of course, I also understand that I agree partially with you, what you said, that politicians can do a lot. In my country, that is not certainly the most efficient country in Europe, as you can imagine. I mean, we are always blamed of being, the last wheel of the situation. But in our law on IVF, it is compulsory to have psychological support. So, I mean, we are obliged to provide psychological support. This is one thing, so this is already a piece. But the other point is that we should be better in communication, in education, and communicate better to the external world. I remember that was one initiative made by Fertility Europe at the European Parliament. Let's talk fertility. So this is what we have to do. I mean, it's.
Well, I think we can close today's event. I would like to express once again my gratitude for the important discussions and insights we have been shared. I extend my thanks to my colleague MEP Eleni for co-hosting this event, and of course to Fertility Europe for bringing this event to life. I think the tireless work of Fertility Europe and the annual European Fertility Week has been crucial in increasing awareness about the challenges faced by people dealing with infertility. I think the event today has shown the strength of collective action, empathy, and advocacy. So I extend my gratitude to all of you for your dedication and commitment to this vital cause. I would like to finish just with a message. Let us carry the message forward and work tirelessly to create healthcare systems where psychological and emotional support is an integral part of every patient's journey. Finally, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Elena, to make the closing remarks.
And I'm not going to repeat a lot of what we heard. I would also like to thank all of you, and especially my co-host, Estrella, and our teams that they worked so hard for this successful event. 2 points that I think are important that maybe in the future we could discuss more is that that around 30% of professionals, the doctors, clinics, do not follow guidelines, and that's important. Why? Because they have the possibility to suggest psychological support, and they don't. They also don't inform you well, because there is a lot of money involved. Sometimes they just propose one IVF treatment after another without taking consideration of the psychological toll it takes on you, on the physical toll as well, because you feel depressed because of the failures, but you feel depressed also because your body changes so much and your psychology changes so much. Like, I was a ballet dancer and I was really slim and beautiful and everything, and after all these IVF treatments I put on like 20 pounds and covered in hair and facial hair and feeling fat and no success, and they don't give you the options available. Like, they don't tell you, look, that they don't explain to you the risks connected with the IVF treatments, especially when there are many of them. Like, some of the women that I was with during this journey got cancer out of maybe out of treatments, and they got really bad depression, and for example, there are other ways to follow. You might want to explore adoption or donors, or they don't tell you this. They just tell you to carry on doing it, and this happened to me as well. And when I went, for example, abroad to seek help, they said, look, you have to stop doing IVF treatments. You've done so many, and you know, there is no point continuing. There is a problem there that you need to address the problem and not keep doing it. You're really harming yourself. And I think that the fact that they gave me the options made a breakthrough to my psychology. And then the end result, that no, they tell you, no, you have to fight it, you will win. No, sometimes you don't win. I haven't won, you know. We don't always win in life. And I think that the liberating moment for me was that also that life has a meaning even without kids. If you don't want to explore other options, it's not the end of the world, you know. So I think this is important that came up from our discussion, and the fact that, as my colleague said, Francis Fitzgerald, sensitivity to the circumstances of others is key. That spreading the message will create more empathy from people and towards this group of people, not feel pity, but feel that, you know, they deserve respect for giving this battle. So I feel like I feel Fertility Europe now is my family. Please come and join us to take this message into our parliaments, into our schools, into our clinics, into our doctors, and, you know, bring it to light and everywhere. Thank you so much.